I never thought a camping trip could go so wrong. You know, when you're out in nature, the last thing you expect is to feel like something's watching you. But there we were, me, my buddy Ethan, and a couple of friends, out in the middle of nowhere in the Smoky Mountains. Just trying to get away from everything for a weekend. It started as a normal day, perfect weather, crisp air, and that quiet hum of the forest. We set up camp near this creek we used to visit as kids. It was a place we'd always go when we needed a break from the chaos of life. The first night was just like the others, good food, some beers, and stories by the fire. But that night, something felt off. Not immediately, just a strange discomfort I couldn't shake. Around midnight, we were sitting around the fire, when I heard something. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but then it came again, faint, like someone whispering just beyond the trees. Ethan and the others were too deep into their conversation to notice, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I stood up and walked a few feet from the campfire, trying to make sense of it. The whispering stopped when I moved, but the forest felt wrong. It was like the usual sounds of nature had died down, and all that was left was an unnatural silence. I called out to Ethan, but he just waved me off. "Relax, man, it's just the wind." But I wasn't so sure. I shrugged it off, trying to convince myself I was just being paranoid. We went to bed soon after, but I kept hearing things, branches snapping, the sound of something moving just outside the camp. Each time, I told myself it was nothing, but deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. I woke up the next morning with a weird chill in my chest. It wasn't cold, but the air felt heavy, like it had been holding something in all night. As we packed up and prepared for a hike, I noticed something strange: footprints. They were large, almost too large to belong to any of us. And they were right near the edge of our campsite, where none of us had gone. I showed them to Ethan, but he laughed it off. Probably just some deer or something. But I wasn't so sure. The more I thought about it, the more those footprints started to creep me out. It was going to be a long day. I just didn't know how long it would feel by the time the sun set again. The rest of the morning passed without incident, but I could feel the tension building inside me. It wasn't just the footprints, it was everything. The silence in the woods felt too complete, like something was intentionally keeping its distance, watching us from the shadows. Ethan was still in high spirits, joking around, but I couldn't shake the growing feeling that something was wrong. We took the trail that led deeper into the forest. It was a path I knew well, one I'd walked a dozen times before. But today, it felt different. The trees seemed taller, the air thicker, and every snap of a twig underfoot made my heart jump. We made it to a clearing by early afternoon, and we decided to rest for a while. That's when we heard it. At first, it was distant, like the sound of footsteps moving through the underbrush. But it was getting closer. Not just one set of footsteps, but multiple, as if someone, or something, was walking around us. I told myself it was just the wind again, playing tricks on my mind. But then the sound stopped. I tried to ignore it, but I couldn't. Every few minutes, I'd catch a glimpse of something moving between the trees. Quick flashes of dark shapes, too fast to be animals. I mentioned it to the others, but Ethan just laughed. "Dude, you're freaking yourself out. It's just deer or something." But even I knew that wasn't right. The movement was too deliberate, too calculated. We packed up and started heading back to camp, but the feeling of being watched never left. Every time I glanced behind me, I saw shadows flitting just outside the reach of our campfire's light. We made it back to camp by nightfall, and the sense of dread had only grown stronger. As we settled in for the night, I heard the same whispering from the trees, the same faint voices just beyond the firelight. I stood up, hoping to catch a glimpse of whoever, or whatever, was out there, but when I looked, all I saw was darkness. That's when the fire suddenly flickered out. One second it was roaring, the next it was nothing but glowing embers. In the sudden darkness, I could hear the others whispering nervously, but none of us moved. And then, I heard it. A branch cracking, just beyond the trees, followed by the unmistakable sound of heavy breathing. It wasn't one of us. Ethan grabbed his flashlight and pointed it into the woods, but the beam only revealed empty trees, swaying gently in the night breeze. We were alone. Or so we thought. The air felt thick as I stared into the woods, trying to make sense of the eerie noises. My heart pounded in my chest, and my skin prickled with the sensation of eyes on me, watching from the darkness just beyond the reach of our campfire. I wanted to tell myself it was just the wind again, but it was hard to ignore the fact that something was out there, something that didn't belong. Ethan kept shining the flashlight into the trees, but no matter how much he searched, he couldn't find anything. We all stood there, frozen, the tension so thick I could taste it. Maybe it's just an animal, Ethan suggested, but his voice was shaky, and I could hear the doubt in it. We should just go to bed and forget about it. I glanced at the others, Jamie and Claire. Jamie's face was pale, and Claire's eyes were wide with fear. No one said anything for a long moment, the only sound being the wind rustling through the leaves. But then the whispering started again, louder this time, closer. It was no longer just the faint, far-off murmur, it was as if someone was standing right behind me, breathing down my neck, murmuring words I couldn't understand. I spun around, but saw nothing. Then I felt it, a presence. It was like the air shifted, pressing in on me from all sides, as if the forest itself had come alive. The trees seemed to close in, and the darkness beyond the firelight felt like it was swallowing the whole world. Is anyone else hearing that? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. No one answered. Before I could process what was happening, the air exploded with a guttural growl, low and throaty, echoing through the trees. It wasn't an animal. It was something human, or something pretending to be. I grabbed Ethan's arm, my heart racing. We need to get out of here, I said, panic creeping into my voice. Now. But it was already too late. The growl turned into something else, something worse. A shrill, otherworldly screech that sent a jolt of terror through my spine. I could feel my blood freeze in my veins. In the distance, I saw movement, large, shadowy shapes, too fast to make out. And then, a figure emerged from the trees. It wasn't human. It was tall, unnaturally tall, and its body was hunched, like it was crouching, but too long, too twisted. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, and its limbs were too long, with fingers that seemed to stretch toward us as it stepped closer. I could barely breathe, and for a second, I thought I was dreaming. But the fear in my gut told me it was all too real. Run! Ethan screamed, grabbing his pack and darting into the woods. But I was frozen in place, paralyzed by the creature's gaze. It was like it was looking at me, seeing right through me, as if it was studying my every move. Claire screamed, and that was enough to snap me out of my trance. I bolted after Ethan, my feet stumbling over rocks and roots, my breath ragged in my chest. We ran blindly through the woods, not knowing where we were going, just trying to get away from whatever that thing was. We didn't stop running until we hit the creek. By the time I looked up, we were standing at the edge of the water, panting, our hearts pounding so hard I thought they might burst. But there was no sign of the creature. We were alive. For now. We huddled by the creek, trying to catch our breath, the air thick with the stench of fear. Ethan was shaking, his face pale under the beam of his flashlight. Jamie and Claire were silent, eyes wide, scanning the shadows around us. But there was one thing I couldn't shake, the feeling that we were still being hunted. The trees around us loomed like silent watchers, their branches twisting and creaking in the wind, but there was no movement. No growls, no screeches, just the eerie silence that followed a terror so deep it settled in your bones. I wanted to believe it was over. That we'd outrun whatever it was. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Ethan broke the silence first, his voice trembling. What the hell was that thing? He sounded more like a man asking himself than anyone else, like he was trying to convince himself it wasn't real. I don't know, I muttered, my throat dry. But I'm not sticking around to find out. The others nodded in agreement, but no one made a move. We were all too scared, too aware of how fragile our survival felt. We spent the next few minutes debating what to do. Our camp was back in the direction we had come from, directly where we'd seen the creature. The path back would lead us straight through the woods, and I didn't trust the trees anymore. The thought of retracing our steps made my stomach twist. We need to head toward the main road, Claire suggested, her voice steady but tinged with fear. It's only a few miles from here. We'll make it there and find help. It was the only option that made sense. There was no way we were going back to camp. So we began to move. We kept close together, sticking to the edge of the creek, trying to stay as quiet as possible. The moonlight barely filtered through the canopy, and every step felt like a century. The woods had an oppressive, suffocating feel now. Every rustling leaf, every distant sound sent a fresh wave of panic through my chest. About 20 minutes into our trek, we heard it. A snap. A loud crack, followed by another growl. It wasn't far. "We're being followed," I whispered, the words barely leaving my mouth before I heard the unmistakable sound of something large moving swiftly through the underbrush, gaining on us. "We need to move faster," Jamie said, his voice tight. We started running, but the creature was close now, just behind us. I could hear its footsteps, heavy and purposeful, just a few yards away. It was hunting us. I dared a quick glance behind me and saw something that made my heart stop, a shape, tall and dark, moving between the trees. Its limbs stretched unnaturally long, its fingers reaching out, brushing the branches as it moved. I could see its face, pale and hollow, with eyes that seemed to reflect the darkness itself. I screamed, pulling at Ethan's arm to make him run faster. It was gaining on us. We were going to die out here. We kept running, pushing ourselves harder, but exhaustion was already settling in. We had no idea how far the road was, and we couldn't afford to slow down. Then, as if the forest itself had turned against us, the ground beneath me gave way. I slipped, tumbling into the creek, the cold water rushing over me. The others shouted, but I didn't hear them over the roar of the stream. My heart was in my throat, but I managed to scramble to my feet, pulling myself back up onto the bank. When I looked up, the others were gone. The terror in my chest exploded as I realized they weren't behind me. They weren't even in sight. The thing was still out there. And now it was after me. My breath came in sharp gasps, the cold water still dripping from my clothes as I scrambled up the creek bank, looking around in a panic. The woods around me were still, too still, and the moon above felt like an accusing eye, watching me from the black sky. I called out for Ethan, Jamie, and Claire, but my voice seemed to disappear into the suffocating silence of the night. There was no answer. The air was thick, heavy with something I couldn't describe. My heart hammered in my chest, a steady, pulsing reminder that I wasn't alone. Whatever had been hunting us wasn't finished yet. It was still here, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the moment to strike. I tried to call out again, but I couldn't force the words from my mouth. It felt like something was choking me, like the very forest had turned against me. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves made my muscles tighten, my body ready to bolt at the slightest sound. And then, just as I was about to turn and start running in the opposite direction, I heard it. A voice. Low. Whispers. It wasn't human. It was like something trying to speak with broken words, an unnatural, guttural rasp that sent a shiver down my spine. It was coming from the trees, no, from within the trees, as if the woods themselves were alive, reaching out to trap me. I froze. The sound wasn't just near me, it was all around me. As if the entire forest had come alive, surrounding me, waiting for me to make a move. Ethan?" My voice cracked, barely above a whisper. There was no response, just the continued murmur of the whispers. I took a step back, my foot slipping slightly on the wet ground. Panic surged through me, and I turned, ready to run, but that's when I saw it. A flash of pale skin, too white, too unnatural, just beyond the trees. It was standing still, its form blending into the darkness, but the eyes glowed faintly, two small pinpricks of light, staring directly at me. I couldn't breathe. The creature wasn't hiding anymore. It was watching me, studying me, and I knew deep down that it wouldn't stop until I was gone. Its face, if you could even call it a face, was hollow and distorted, stretched unnaturally, like a mockery of a human face. And then, it stepped forward. Its movements were slow at first, deliberate, as if it enjoyed the fear it was causing. My feet felt glued to the ground, and no matter how much I wanted to move, my body wouldn't respond. The whispers grew louder, filling my mind with a chorus of voices that weren't real, but felt real, like they were coming from inside me. I broke free. My legs finally responded, and I sprinted through the trees, barely aware of where I was going, just focused on getting away. Branches slapped at my face, roots twisted underfoot, but I kept running. I couldn't stop. I wouldn't stop. I don't know how long I ran. Minutes? Hours? Time felt like it had lost all meaning. The woods had become a maze, a nightmare where every turn seemed to lead me deeper into the heart of darkness. Then, in the distance, I saw it, a light. A flicker through the trees. It had to be the road. I pushed myself harder, ignoring the burn in my legs, the ache in my lungs. The light grew brighter the closer I got, and I felt a spark of hope. I was almost there. Almost out of the woods. But then I heard the most terrifying sound yet. A screech, loud, piercing, and filled with malice, that made my blood run cold. I turned just in time to see it. The creature was right behind me, too fast, too close. Its mouth opened wide, wider than it should have been able to, and I could see rows of sharp, jagged teeth glinting in the moonlight. There was no time to think. I had one choice. I ran straight for the light. My heart thundered in my chest as I tore through the underbrush, the creature's screeches echoing behind me, sending waves of panic through my body. The light ahead was my only hope, a tiny beacon in a sea of darkness. It had to be the road, or a campsite, or anything that wasn't this nightmare. I pushed myself harder, ignoring the burn in my legs, the scratch of branches against my face, and the choking sensation of fear that threatened to swallow me whole. The creature's screech grew louder, closer, and I could hear its heavy footsteps pounding after me, faster than anything human could move. Its grotesque shape was just behind me now, its shadow looming over the ground. I dared a glance over my shoulder, big mistake. The thing was right there, barely 10 feet away, its twisted mouth open, its long fingers reaching toward me. I didn't hesitate. I bolted toward the light with every ounce of strength left in me. My foot hit something soft, a patch of grass, and I stumbled, but managed to keep my footing. Then I saw it clearly, a faint glow of headlights through the trees. I was almost there. I didn't look back again. With the creature hot on my heels, I burst through the final line of trees and into a clearing. There, just beyond the edge of the forest, I saw it, a parked car, headlights on, the engine idling. A flash of relief, but then, confusion. There was no one in the car. I didn't care. I ran toward it, pounding on the hood, desperate to get inside, to escape. But the doors were locked. The car, a beat-up old sedan, was abandoned, left alone in the middle of nowhere with no sign of life. And then I heard it. The low, slow rasp of breath from behind me. I spun around, my blood running cold. The creature had stopped at the edge of the trees. It wasn't coming any closer, but it was still watching me, its glowing eyes locked onto mine. It stood motionless, waiting, as if it were savoring the moment, enjoying my terror. I backed away from the car, my body trembling. The whispers were louder now, swirling around me like a storm, filling my mind with incoherent noise. But I couldn't look away from the creature. I couldn't stop staring at it. And then, it happened. The thing in the trees vanished. Just like that. 1 second it was standing there, and the next, it was gone. No rustling, no movement, no noise, just emptiness where it had been. For a long, terrible moment, I just stood there, trying to make sense of it. My mind refused to accept what I had seen, what had happened. Had I imagined it? Had it somehow gone? But before I could even form another thought, I heard something else. A soft whisper, like someone calling my name. My heart skipped a beat. It wasn't the creature. It wasn't the wind. It was human. I turned, my legs like jelly beneath me. I saw a figure standing by the edge of the clearing. It was Ethan. My heart surged with hope. Ethan. I called out, running toward him. But as I got closer, something felt off. The way he was standing, his body too still, too silent. He didn't respond. I called out his name again, but there was no answer. And that's when I saw it. His face. It wasn't him. It couldn't have been. His eyes were wide, hollow, and his skin was pale, deathly pale. And there was something wrong about him. Something twisted. I stopped dead in my tracks. The figure, Ethan, or what used to be him, reached out, its fingers stretching toward me. It was the same thing that had chased us through the woods. It was the creature, taking the shape of my friend. And in that moment, I realized just how deep the nightmare had gone. It had mimicked him. It knew who I cared about, who I would run to. It was trying to draw me in, to make me come closer. My blood ran cold. I turned on my heel and ran, not looking back, knowing the creature, whatever it truly was no longer just hunting me. It was using everything I feared against me. And I was alone in this fight. I didn't dare look back. My mind was screaming, but my legs kept moving, faster and faster. I could feel it, just behind me, its breath, its weight, its presence hanging like a dark cloud in the night. It was toying with me, like a hunter playing with its prey. But I couldn't stop. Not this time. The car was still there, abandoned, but I didn't care about it anymore. I wasn't going to make the same mistake again. I was running toward the only thing that could save me, the main road. I had to get there. I had to get out of these woods. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode, but I couldn't stop. My breath came in ragged gasps, my legs aching with each step, but still I pushed forward. The sounds of the forest had changed. The trees no longer felt like they were standing still. The whispers were growing louder, clearer, like they were wrapping around me, trying to pull me back. But I couldn't give in. Not now. I finally reached the edge of the forest. There was the road, a long, empty stretch of asphalt under the faint glow of streetlights in the distance. But I was too tired, too out of breath. My mind was a fog of panic and exhaustion. Then, just as I reached the road, I heard it again. The screech. It was closer this time. Too close. I spun around. There, in the distance, standing in the trees at the edge of the forest, was the figure. The creature. It had stopped following me. It wasn't running anymore. It wasn't even moving. But it was waiting. And then, I saw something that chilled me to the bone. The creature wasn't just standing there. It was, watching me. Watching me, waiting for me to come closer. And behind it, I saw something that made me freeze. Shapes, figures, emerged from the shadows of the trees. Figures I recognized. Ethan. Jamie. Claire. But they weren't them. The creature had taken their forms. They stood there, motionless, eyes vacant, staring at me with the same hollow, empty gaze. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. They were gone. Lost to whatever that thing was. But the worst part? They weren't dead. Not yet. Not entirely. The creature turned its head slowly, its grotesque face twisting into a mockery of a smile, its hollow eyes locking onto mine. It wanted me to see. It wanted me to know. I was next. I ran. With everything I had left, I sprinted down the road, my legs burning with the strain. I didn't know how long I ran. Minutes? Hours? I had no idea. All I could do was keep going, keep moving, because I knew if I stopped, if I looked back, it would be over. And then, as if by some twisted miracle, I saw headlights in the distance. A car. Real. Not the creature's trick. I ran toward it, waving my arms, yelling for help. The car slowed, and the window rolled down, a man's voice calling out, "You okay?" I collapsed against the door, gasping for breath, my body shaking uncontrollably. I looked behind me, expecting to see them, but there was nothing. Just the empty road. "Please," I said, my voice breaking. "Please, take me out of here. There's something in those woods." The man nodded, his eyes scanning the darkness behind me. "All right, get in." I got into the car without hesitation, and he started driving. As we moved further away from the forest, I kept glancing out the rearview mirror, but I never saw anything follow us. Nothing. It was over. At least, that's what I thought. But as I looked at the man driving, something caught my eye, a reflection in the mirror. The face that stared back at me wasn't my own. It was the hollow, vacant face of someone I used to know. And that's when I realized I wasn't safe. Did you like these stories? Write in the comments. And please write what you didn't like. It will be useful for me to know your opinion. And I will improve my work. Thank you. Subscribe to my channel and click the bell so as not to miss new stories. I try for you.